Yes. Sir. Yeah. Good morning to all of you. Today, on behalf of NCDS, I welcome you all to the 14th National Statistics Day, celebrating 127th birthday of Professor Prashant Chandra Mahalanobis. As suggested by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, the theme for this year's National Statistics Day is Sustainable Development Goal number 3, that is good health and well-being, and Sustainable Development Goal number 5, that is gender equality. On this occasion, it is a great honor to pay homage to Professor Mahalanobis on his 127th birthday. In recognition of the notable contribution made by Professor Mahalanobis in the fields of statistical development and economic planning in the post-independent era, the Government of India has decided to designate 29th June every year as National Statistics Day. Professor Prashant Chandra Mahalanobis is also known as the father of Indian statistics. He was a physicist by training, a statistician by instinct, and a planner by conviction. His contributions were massive on the academic side as the formulator of Mahalanobis distance, builder of the Indian Statistical Institute, and architect of the Indian Second Five-Year Plan, and much more. Now it's time to invite the dignitaries on the broadcast studio. I take great privilege to welcome Professor T Krishna Kumar, formerly with ISI Bengaluru, to join with us.
Statistics Day to remember and honor Professor Mahalanobis. The basic plan strategy of the second five-year plan, as you all know, is to allocate a lot of effort to industries that produce machines to make machines. And Professor Mahalanobis actually used that strategy for developing a rapid growth of statistics knowledge by investing his efforts in creating institutions that create statistical knowledge. And these are Indian Statistical Institute and the National Sample Survey Organization. Hats off to this visionary for his contribution to statistics, and it is greater than what Ronald Fisher or Carl Pearson or the Neyman had contributed to the field. None of them did what Mahalanobis did to statistics. One of the themes chosen for this is health and well-being. I asked two basic questions. Did Mahalanobis apply statistics to this area? Secondly, given limited time, can I identify at least one important problem in health and well-being where statistics developed by Mahalanobis could be used? In 1926, Mahalanobis examined the seasonal variations in diarrhea, dysentery, and appendicitis, and highlighted the waterborne nature of the and the need for necessary public health measures. And that particular work was published in a medical journal. Cancer, as you know, is a very deadly disease, and not only it creates a long traumatic experience to the patient, but also to the attending family members. I have noted that the same kind of cancer that was not curable about 10 years ago is now getting cured through micro-targeting and through genetic therapy. Both of these are based on some research, that background research that goes on, which is classifying the gene expressions into two types, normal and abnormal. And abnormal expression is the one that causes cancer, and normal one is normal. And that is being done using bioinformatics. And bioinformatics uses actually grouping of these gene expressions into two types, one that are normal and one that's not normal. And the problem is quite similar to the one that was first tackled by Mahalanobis long ago, namely when he had multiple measurements, anthropometric measurements, to identify whether they belong to the same population or to different ethnic groups. And hence, some of the contributions made by Mahalanobis are indirectly being used in bioinformatics. So this is just a simple example I am giving, but there are multitude of examples. In data analytics recently, I was doing some machine learning program recently. I found that for dimensional reduction, they are using Mahalanobis distance as one of the options that they would be using. So I will stop here and pass on the role to Surya. Are you having questions on this right away?
Should I take up, or are there any questions? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Any question to Professor Krishna Kumar? Okay, shall I start, Professor?
Yeah, start.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And I'm very happy to be a member of this panel and participate in this discussion, because ISI is my alma mater. I always recall my learning experience, with a lot of gratitude. Similarly, I know that this is an occasion to where we celebrate this Mahalanobis birthday today to recognize his invaluable contribution to the Indian statistical system, which includes even applied statisticians like me. So I thought, I would like to begin by paying my tribute by mentioning what I have learned from at the Indian Statistical Institute, and how I can use some of those techniques and instruments, for example, in addressing issues, for example, relating to health policy. So I'll just give you a simple example. One important issue which I always remember learning from Indian Statistical Institute is that careful attention to detail. And another important, my own professor, and again another important area of research where I have worked a lot, essentially the one favorite area of Professor Mahalanobis, that is income distribution. Professor Mahalanobis is always known for his income distribution committee report and his analytical skills, his fractal graphical analysis, and measurement of levels of living, consumption patterns, etc. In fact, I have continued to work on those lines, even thanks to my supervisor, late Professor NSI Iyengar also. Professor NSI Iyengar is now well known for his contributions to angle elasticities, consumption patterns, log normal distribution, etc. Using the same framework, what I thought was that I try to address some contemporary issues. For instance, now when it comes to health policy, quite often people ask, is it possible to formulate an inclusive health policy? So essentially, it's a health policy which provides for automatic inclusion of the poor sections of the society. How can we do that? So particularly this given the emphasis of the SDGs also on inclusive growth, inclusive policies, etc. This is an important issue which I thought I should try to address, and I will just give a very small framework how I try to go about this issue. I just essentially borrowed the techniques put forward by Professor Mahalanobis and Professor Iyengar and others, widely used at the Indian Statistical Institute, that is estimating angle elasticities. Professor Iyengar, what he did in most of his studies is to study the consumption patterns as reflected in the NSS consumption distributions, and fitting the lockdown distributions or Lawrence ratios or Lawrence, he tried to estimate angle elasticities. Similarly, what I tried to do is I looked at the NSS data on morbidity surveys. I know it gives the profiles of morbidity across consumption distribution. Using the same information, using the techniques similar to the ones used by Professor Iyengar and others, what I try to do is I try to estimate angle elasticities for morbidity, different types of diseases. So just the way Professor Iyengar classified, commodities into necessaries, luxuries, and inferior commodities. Okay, what I try to do is I try to classify the diseases as those afflicting largely the poor sections. That means angle elasticity diseases with the angle elasticity less than 0. I call them inferior diseases or diseases largely afflicting the poor. On that basis, I use these angle elasticities for morbidity to classify diseases and try to identify whether it would be possible to, by reorienting the public policies depending upon region or depending upon sections of the society, whether it would be possible to facilitate self-targeting. In fact, I essentially took a clue from this debate on public distribution system, because there was a suggestion that the government should stop supplying rice and wheat through the public distribution. Government should provide only core cereals, largely consumed by the poor sections, so that there'll be automatic self-targeting. So taking this clue, what I tried to do was that I tried to classify these morbidity profiles or diseases in different regions of India, and also particularly Kerala and all India, and try to classify them as diseases afflicting the largely poor sections and larger better off sections with reference to angle elasticities. This is what I try to do and see, classify and see whether we can really formulate a public policy for health, so which will be self-targeting. I think this is an important issue which I try to address using the techniques I learned at the Indian Statistical Institute. This is how I try to pay my tribute to my teachers who taught me some of these basic techniques. I think I will stop it here.
Professor Pulak, Ghosh, can you?
Yeah.
Start?
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Professor Ghosh, this is.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you all for joining here today and celebrating the Statistics Day. India is a unique country which started the statistics journey well ahead of many developed countries. So that way we are grateful. But we haven't done that well, despite being started too early. So the onus comes to people who are listening to this and people like us to spearhead this. Now, I think statistics today is in the utmost danger in the form we have learned. And we have to be careful about it. Whatever we have learned and whatever is our textbook, very soon those are going to change, because the very fundamentals are getting challenged by computer scientists, by other field. And I have no objection or no surprise in telling that we as a community in statistics haven't done well over time. So that is the first realization I have. And that's why other fields, particularly computer science, pretty much taken over statistics. Now, the things on the theme today, so I have a couple of points to make. One is, health and well-being. What are the things we should do as a statistician? And nowadays, who is not a statistician? That's the question. Everybody is a statistician in its own right, as long as you are playing with the data. Now, the very first thing comes to my mind, which in some way we are trying to do, is mapping the health incidence, climate, food habits, and having a heat map throughout the country. We still don't have that. So for example, if we say that India is the second largest incidence rate of diabetes, I really don't have a map or I really don't have information on which district has maximum, which districts likely to beat that maximum, and why. So that is the first thing we need to do, and relating that to the food habits. The second problem, which is still kind of unresolved, but we need to figure it out, is on the well-being side. How do we tackle things like, for example, so whenever you talk about well-being, the cost of living comes in. So I remember in my childhood, I used to get milk just by my side, in the sense, there was buffaloes and all those within maybe 2 kilometers of where we used to stay. Now, because of civilization moving forward, they are being pushed. And because they are being pushed, and that milk coming to me by traveling, let's say 300 kilometers, the cost is increasing. We still don't have a clear understanding which food consumed by how much, by which region, and where that is coming from. Recently, we have started a work on this using GST data. As you all know, GST is a big source of this kind of inside the country trade, to figure out that which brand travels how much to feed whom. And the third very important point, which I started with, is, as I said, statistics is changing. And statistics is changing because, particularly for India, the way we learn statistics is we have a data and we are going to analyze. But if you look at my country and several other countries, including Western countries, they are realizing over time there are plenty of problems we need to solve where we cannot have data. Now, if we cannot have data, then how do I still get an understanding in a quantitative sense of something very, very interesting or very, very useful for the policymaker? To give you a couple of examples, let's say, how is the well-being of the migrant population during COVID time? Right? If that question is asked, what does a statistician do? Statistician is completely useless here, because the statistician will say, I really don't have a data. But the country cannot wait till the data is being gathered. So now the statistician needs to think a step back by saying, well, I do not have the data, but is there any other data through which I can develop some proxies? As an example, we are working with mobile companies along with government to figure out what is the mobile phone consumption for this population during COVID time, to understand whether their mental health are as expected. In the sense, somebody may be using, let's say, 2 gigabyte of data before, but now use 1/10 of that. Now, why would somebody do that? Right? That's a signal. So similarly, there are things like, for example, government comes up with lots of schemes, and majority of the time, the real problem is the person to whom this scheme is going to benefit has no idea, and they don't know how to get it. So how do I bridge this gap? That is, again, you do not have data, but how do you develop something in today's world, which we call big data, to solve this gap? So I believe in health and well-being. If that is where India has to make a case forward, we better not wait for a clean, shaped data the way statisticians are trained to deal with, but rather to look at other data sources and create proxies to come up with solutions which is handy, quick, and policymakers can make use of it very, very quickly. So in today's world, this part of statistics are very, very important. And this is where a computer scientist, an economist, and a statistician needs to come in together. The fourth point, which I want to make in today, is that again, coming back to the same thing, that statistics is changing. In the sense, I remember in my master's days, undergrad days, we were beaten up with the concept of unbiased, minimum variance and everything, and they were like, God. If you look deeply, today people are increasingly saying, I really don't care about being unbiasedness. If my objective is to predict something well, why do I care about being unbiased? And that's precisely what machine learning does, right? And machine learning is coming in the mainstream of statistics. So there is lots of these concepts are going to change because the data structures are changing, the questions we ask are changing, and the policymakers need our help to understand that carefully. So we really need to look at a little differently and look at a lot more intelligently and come out of the way we are trained, because this needs a new kind of thinking. We have enough training to think new. The question is, are we going to do that? Are we going to pass it on to our next generation, the students, this new kind of thing? Otherwise, what will happen? Again, this other field and the other country will take us over. So for us, this is a time that we embrace the newest version of statistics, the new kind of thinking, the new kind of data structure. How do you solve problems when I do not have data? These are the things equally important to the health and well-being analysis also. The last point I want to make is India really, really needs a health inequality index by district, if possible, by household. Government of India currently doing something called, second version of ACCC, which is socio-economic caste-based census. They have done one in 2011. And there, after a lot of discussion, they have agreed to put forward a lot of health measure in it also. And hopefully, but that's still, census, it will take time. But hopefully that will give us some understanding about health. By health, I really don't mean about heart attack and all those things. What I mean is the basic health infrastructure in the rural population, even in urban slums, what is happening. And those information are very, very much needed for India and for us to do anything to the policymaker. So I'll stop here.
There is a question about the developments in at ISI on health and well-being have parallel developments in UK on aspects done by John Snow and Florence Nightingale. Any one of you can answer that?
Well, I'm not aware of anything on ISI on health and well-being, so that's why I can't comment.
Actually, in my
Professor Krishna Kumar,
yeah, come on, Surya.
Even I don't have much information. I don't have much information on this aspect.
Yeah. See,
I don't know whether you will be able to guide us.
Actually, the only thing I know related to this is that I know that Florence Nightingale did come to India and did some survey research on malaria incidence and spread in India. And her work was highly recognized, and she was made an honorary member of the American Statistical Association. And she also was made a fellow of the Royal Society for some of the work she had done in India as well as in Egypt.
But I would like to point out, even if it is done, it may be long ago, and we need to relook at this in a fresh mind and very, very carefully, because complications are a lot more today than maybe 50 years back. And with the kind of inequality, even within zip code in India, income inequality, food inequality, residential inequality, access inequality, financial access inequality, I think these are all correlated with the health inequality. So this needs to be looked at it in a very, very minute details, and we need to have a policy on that.
Any other question? If not, we'll move to the second topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can move to the second topic, sir.
Yeah, okay. The other theme is the gender equality. And when it comes to the gender inequality, I would really like to talk something which does not seem to fit into statistics and work that Mahalanobis has done. But statistics and Mahalanobis are so versatile that there could be a connection between statistics, Mahalanobis, and gender inequality or equality. So let me mention first, like what was discussed by Professor Ghosh some time back. There is a lot of, like he was mentioning about the immigrant having no data on the immigrants. Nowadays, the concept of statistics has changed a lot. The statistics now deals with information. That information comes in the form of not only numerical data, but as a text, as a voice, as a picture, which is either static or moving picture, and so on. The question is how to use all the types of information, different types of information, into some kind of a knowledge. That is the transformation. Like, I think he was referring to that kind of a transformation that is taking place in statistics. So that is the big data analysis that is going on. And given this, there's a lot of work that can be done. Perhaps some of you might know that statistics is used in history. And it is for that kind of work called cliometrics that two economists received a Nobel Prize in economics. So one can take even historic data and even if it is in the text form, you can use it, categorize it, and do certain analysis and come up with some interesting questions related to gender inequality. And really, the reason why I say that Mahalanobis and gender inequality issues are indirectly related is the following. Mahalanobis belongs to Brahma Samaj. And Brahma Samaj was a movement, as most of you know, this is a textbook material, that Sati was removed from India due to the effort by Raja Ram Mohan Rai. And he is the one who founded Brahma Samaj. And at that time, the questions that many of the people in Bengal asked were, why should a woman who lost her husband give up her life, whereas a man who loses his wife doesn't do that, and at the same time, even if he is 60-year-old, he goes and marries a 16-year-old girl. Similarly, if a man can remarry, why can't a widow marry? If a boy can go to school, why can't a girl go to school? These are all the various issues that confronted Brahma Samaj. And many of you who have heard, read about Mahalanobis' life would know that he went to Brahmo boys' school. And there is an equivalent school, Brahmo Balika Shikshanalaya or something like that in Calcutta. So there was a boys' school and a girls' school. There was a promotion of girls' education by Brahma Samaj. And then there were widow marriages. For example, Mahalanobis' grandfather married a widow. These are the kinds of things that Brahma Samaj was engaged in long ago. And perhaps one can use some of that information and data to analyze what can be learned from the history, and like what attributes of Brahma Samaj are the ones that brought about some transformation in the society. And also there is no measure of the extent of transformation that was brought about. How do you measure the extent of transformation brought about by Brahma Samaj? Some of these issues, which look qualitative, but they are very interesting issues that can be analytically examined. I hope that people, some of the younger generation, will take interest in that kind of a thing. And incidentally, I would like to say here that if you just imagine what kind of a conditions the women were in or girls were in those days, late 18th, in 19th century, late 1860s and so on, you would find that women are totally neglected. And whatever medical research was done under British India, it was mostly done for the benefit of the British. So, for example, they were interested in developing research in tropical diseases which are communicable, because they wanted to protect themselves from communicable diseases. So, but they have done very little, and there were no women in medical education. For your information, the first 3 medical graduates who are women in India came from Brahma Samaj, from Calcutta. One of them is actually not, that is Anandibai Joshi. She was actually from Maharashtra, but she found that in Maharashtra she could not work. So she and her husband moved to Calcutta, and in Calcutta they were influenced by the movement, the Brahma Samaj movement, and they became Brahmos. And it is from Calcutta that she went to Philadelphia, and there was a women's medical college in Philadelphia. That is where she graduated in about 1869 or so with a medical degree and returned to India. And there were 2 other ladies. Both of them are also Brahma Samaj people. One is Haimavati Sen, and the other is Kadambini, Dr. Kadambini and Haimavati. Kadambini Ganguly. And Kadambini Ganguly married her teacher, who was also a Brahmo, and he lost his first wife. That means for him, it was the second wife. So these are the kinds of gender equality issues that Brahma Samaj long ago in 1860s and later followed in Calcutta. And some of the people who are interested in gender inequalities and equalities may examine these historical facts and analyze them to see if we can learn anything as to how to bring about change in the society. Maybe I'll stop here. And Surya, you have anything to say? Surya? My video.
Yeah,
is it?
thank you.
Did
Thank
my
you.
video-
Okay, I will start then.
Why don't you go ahead?
When it comes to this second, can you? No, I have not muted. Can you?
No, my video went mute. So what all I talked.
Okay. Okay. Now the second topic, that is gender empowerment. I would.
Surya, are you going to pick up, or you want me to talk? by mistake, my video got muted.
But I haven't heard you.
You heard me?
Yeah.
Okay, that means my video was off, but my talk was on.
Yeah, because
Okay,
I haven't heard you. I don't know about this Professor Ghosh.
Okay.
Yeah, I did hear you.
Okay, why don't you start?
Okay. As it is the second topic, I was just wondering what should be the focus of my comments, because I was just looking before that. I like a teacher, just on prepare sometimes before any topic or any lecture. So I was just looking at it. What should be the focus of this panel discussion? There it clearly says the object of this celebration of this National Statistics Day is to sensitize the public about how the statistics plays an important role in public policy formulation. In this context, I thought when it comes to gender empowerment, I would share my own experience. The first step in any public policy formulation is to specify the problem, measure the seriousness of the problem, and so that again make periodic estimates so that one can really evaluate the policies in course of time, how effective the policies has been, is it a success or is it a failure, and what are the modifications to be pursued. These kind of issues are important, So given my experience with the different state governments in formulating human development reports, where I thought I'll just share that experience. I've been involved with preparing this Maharashtra Human Development Report. We have prepared 3 human development reports for Maharashtra. The first human development report, as a second, and the third one we have prepared, but still they are not published. What I would like to share with you, till now, we have been preparing Maharashtra human development reports since 2000, 2 decades. Still, we don't have any information to prepare what is called Gender Development Index. So I'm just giving one simple example, because we just don't, even after 2 decades of efforts to prepare human development reports, and we know that what are the missing information details, and in fact the government of Maharashtra even is trying to set up a human development research institute in Pune, and still when it comes to gender development index, we have not been able to produce any estimate. And but even though the government of Maharashtra has already produced 3 human development reports, in the 3rd human development, it has tried to produce the indices even at the district level. In fact, because one important problem facing Maharashtra has been, even though it is one of the richest, virtually the richest state in the country, and the high regional imbalance. The city of Bombay alone accounts for almost 45-50% of the state income. But majority of the for various districts like Dhule contribute, they have more than 60% of the population is poor there. So because of the high regional imbalances in Maharashtra, particularly from it as a gender dimension also, there has been a lot of emphasis on examining this particular issue, gender development, and what sort of policies the government should pursue. But government has not been able to even specify this problem because of for lack of information. So I thought that even within a conventional, definitely what Professor Pulak pointed out, even within a contemporary modern database, big data, everything is important. What I'm telling you, even when I'm going to look at from conventional framework, which we have been using virtually right from the day one, right from the day we got independence, still we have not made much progress. We don't have any human gender development index for Maharashtra. Or if I am going to measure any associated indices to address issues related to human development from a gender perspective, we don't have any information. Even at the state level, forget about the district level or region level, we have not been able to produce any estimates. So that's why I thought one important issue which needs, within the conventional framework, there's a lot to be done in terms of data generation and policy formulation. I have also worked on this kind of issues for the state government of Karnataka, Kerala, etc. In all these states, I found that the information is not at all satisfactory. For instance, we also tried to develop inequality adjusted human development indices. Same problem we had. We could do it at the making several simplistic assumptions at the state level. Beyond that, we had serious problems. So whether you look at the gender dimension or even if the total macro dimension combined, men and women combined, we had there's a lot of information missing information, so that we couldn't even specify the problem. The whole question of addressing policy formulation comes after we specify, understand the nature of the problem. If the doctor doesn't know what is the patient's problem, he won't be able to suggest any policies. So same problem. So that's what I thought that when it comes to gender development or issues related to gender empowerment, there's a lot of information, missing information. So even in connection with the first stage of policy formulation, specify the problem. There is one important issue I would like to emphasize. Second thing is, we also talk about, in the context of sustainable development, we keep talking about, gender empowerment. I was trying to see whether we can really evaluate certain policies. So I have been talking about only policy for specific problem specification, policy formulation. Suppose I want to evaluate certain policies. Can we really do that? Because for the one important policy program which has been widely discussed is NREGA. So I was trying to see whether if we can really evaluate NREGA from the gender dimension. So that means how far it has led to gender empowerment. So I thought I'll just share with you my experience here. I was trying to develop certain measures of inclusion with respect to the gender dimension. Because, for example, the NSS gives an employment survey, I took the national NSS survey for the year 2009-10, agriculture year 2009-10, try to look at the women participation in the NREGA. I tried to define certain measures of inclusion, certain measures of empowerment, certain measures of equity at the state level, at the district level, and try to see what's to evaluate the NREGA program from a gender empowerment perspective. So what I'm trying to say that we have to essentially when it comes to gender empowerment, there are two broad types of issues that we have to see. One thing is there are certain issues like the gender development index where we don't have any information. Whereas in other cases, for instance, if I want to really evaluate programs like NREGA, okay, we have information. I think what I find is that we don't have appropriate concepts and measures and estimates. So I thought these are the two important issues which need some focus and attention from the practitioners as well as policymakers' perspective. This is what I have to say on the gender empowerment issue. Thank you. Professor Ghosh, I pass it on to you.
Yeah. So, gender empowerment is not specific to India. It's all over the world. We definitely has much granular issue in the sense, for example, male to female child ratio. And there has been some work some state governments, or probably all state government does, is on malnutrition. And so, there is obviously lots of measures government does, but there is no coherent approach to it. And so gender gap reduction also comes in for example, if you have looked at a few years back, there is a maternity benefit rule has been passed. Right, and people thought that is going to be a great thing, but apparently the research says, and I myself have done something, which says it's actually affecting the woman more, the rule in its current structure, particularly in the technology-driven companies, where if a person is out of the show for some time, then it's hard to come back, and so the companies are trying to figure out that within this age group, if there is some way I would not hire a female, right? So what I'm coming at is, one is identifying the issue, another is policymakers doing something to straighten it out so that the gender gap reduces. But then the third part is looking at the ground reality, and as a statistician, econometrician, this is our duty to come back to the policymakers and say, this is not working. So, for example, the malnutrition benefit and lots of other benefit, for example, in my state where I came from, not where I live right now, West Bengal, has come up with a beautiful scheme by saying that, if a girl child is in the school until the 10th, 12th standard and is not married, then the girl and the family is going to get a lump sum amount of rupees 25,000 once she passes 12th standard. Now, that's basically to push the parents not to get the girl married off early enough. Now, that's a wonderful scheme. Is it working? That's the question to be asked, right? So I guess there is plenty of gender gap issues starting from that level where a child is born, but then there is differential. A gender gap issue in urban is different than a gender gap issue in rural, to all the way of employment. And several other societal aspects are also there. I'm not getting into the societal aspect as much. I'm more talking about the economic angle of it. So several government over the time, policymakers over the time, state government, central government have realized this and they have tried to address it. What is missing is analyzing those and trying to come up with by saying, this is working because of this is not working because of this. And that part is missing in a big way. And I guess today we need to figure out why that is the case. A majority of the time, we do not have data. That's the real issue. That is changing in India with more digitization and everything. The data part, I'm hoping in next few years, we'll be able to solve. But then the kind of data we have again, I'm coming back to my first point before this came up. We as a statistician need to change. We are a very arrogant community. We think we know everything, and we think that as n tends to infinity, I prove a theorem and I have solved the world problem. That's not true. India needs to change from theoretical statistics to applied statistics, which United States has done like 30 years back. In India, applied statisticians are looked down upon. Okay? So we need to understand that if it is the time to analyze data, become a very, very savvy applied statistician. There may be theories, but those theories have to back me up. And given the enormous amount of data coming to me, the theorems of n tends to infinity usually doesn't carry more weight anymore because the data itself is infinity. So these are the thing we have right now, right? For example, people have started questioning, what do I mean by random sample? Why do I do anything on random sample where today a computer allows me to deal with the entire census data, the entire data itself? The data may be really, really big. Why do I care? I should not take a random sample. The concept of random sampling is slowly going out. Right, so coming back, I think gender gap, or rather gender inequality, is a big problem. And it is in every spheres of our life. So if we identify some problems and try to come up with some solution, but then try to also understand that whether the various policy decisions by policymakers are actually helping this or not, is going to be the very, very important aspects. I will tell you a very important aspects of gender inequality happened because of COVID, which we are dealing right now. So in the COVID, you understand that one of the very big community getting affected is the education sector. Now let's forget about the colleges and universities. Let's talk about the schools from class 1 or class 5 to class 10. We very nicely say everybody has a smartphone, right? Let's go beyond tier 3 cities, very deep end of a rural sector. Even if that household has one smartphone, imagine two scenarios. One, the internet connection is not so good. Even if you assume because of Jio, it's still okay. Let's assume that household has two kids, one girl child, one boy. And both the child is exposed to an online teaching from the school. They got one phone. The data saying right now what we are looking at, majority of the time, the parents are giving that smartphone to access classes to the boy, and the girl is the second option. How do you solve this? Okay, so this is a mix of policy, economics, and statistics. Today's statistics cannot stand alone as it used to be 100 years back or 50 years back. Today's statistics is extremely intertwined with economics and computer science to solve policy problems. And we have to look these from this angle.
Sometimes I also wonder whether we are trying to depend too much on sources like National Sample Survey or official statistics for the data, and hence not make our own efforts to collect data. Because if we collect data, we are in better command on what the data is. Whereas if we take NSS data, we may not be as sure as we should be of the type of data and quality of data.
No, it's more than that, actually. The question we are asking now in statistics fraternity and policymakers is, what is the validity of survey? Survey has lots of issues.
Yeah.
We have relied on it because we didn't have anything else, but not anymore. If you look at Bureau of Labor Statistics in the United States, they openly released 2 years back that in parallel to survey, they have started use of real-time big data. And in 10-year time, they will replace the entire survey-based results with big data. Now, what do they mean by that? Think as COVID situation. Today, you cannot do survey. Does that mean we should not have a CPI? So what is the alternate way? The alternate way is scrap the entire databases of bigbasket.com, gophers.com, and every online stores. I can literally scrap this data every day. And that price, real time, give me a proxy of what is happening to my consumption basket, which is not going to be extremely different to what a survey person would do. The question what the policymaker and the statistician has come is, this is also a good way to do. Let's parallelly do it for a few years and try to see what are the loopholes, what are the parallels, what are the differences, and come up with a better approach. Because problem we have is we don't let go things very easily what I'm doing for 20 years. And this is where statistics in India right now. We need to push ourselves to the newer things, embrace the newer thing instead of shutting it off. Obviously, those newer things will have problem. But did survey didn't have problem? It has enormous problem. But we accepted it over time because that's the only way to do. So this is a big area where India needs to move forward. We are trying to push it, but let's see.
Also, one of the questions that is coming up is from Dr. Indira. She suggesting that maybe the absence of data on the gender equality issue itself is a problem of gender inequality. That means there is not enough attention paid to that issue. That is why we don't have the data.
So I would not agree to that completely. There are lots of other fields where the data is there. For example, almost every state now have schemes where when a mother is pregnant, from then on they are being monitored with a band in the hand. And once they deliver the child, immediately they get some money. So that's why the mothers are very careful about wearing that band. And that band kind of tells you, a lot of things. So there are lots of data in different aspects. Question is, are we analyzing it properly? Is there a better way of doing it? And there are also spheres where we do not have data, which we need to intervene and come up with ways to collect data.
Yeah, I like this question coming from Subrato Mukherjee. We are all used to using whatever data comes to us and draw inferences. But what if the data itself is misinformation? This is
almost every data has some misinformation. It's not new. Okay. Now the problem is we have too much information and we really don't know which one has signal and which one is noise.
Yeah.
So that is something even the statisticians are struggling. I'll give an example. When Donald Trump initially took office, there was a big study done by Princeton by saying that how do I identify which tweet is actually done by Trump and which tweet is not done by Trump in Trump's tweet, right? And they came up with a pattern that if in this time he used certain kind of words, certain kind of sentiments like that. So I think this is a big area of research in general. It's very hard to give an answer in one go.
Srijit, are you on? Surya, is anybody monitoring or?
Doesn't look like.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, what I was suggesting is that there is this question.
Yeah.
By Kaibalyapati. So about what did India miss that others like America, China, and Taiwan did, and they have developed much more. And then he also has another question coming up. Here's the questions. The different researchers have shown that internationally also there is huge gender disparity across. I think this was already addressed from Dr. Indira's concerns, but he's saying that this discrimination also exists in academia in terms of number of professors, other publications. In fact, a recent COVID research shows out that women professionals, academic professionals, have a greater burden in the family and able to come out with less publications. So this is one point. But I think the other point that he takes out, why did India miss out and others did, like Taiwan, some other East Asian countries. Taiwan because that 48, China, Taiwan, US did much earlier. So what did it that we miss out and they did? I think.
I don't know much about the Mahalanobis second 5-year plan, but my comment is India miss out from everybody else on few grounds. The first ground is women's education. China in 1970, they said that if a house does not send their girl to school, they are not going to get any kind of governmental support. So what China realized in 70s, it took a prime minister in 2014 to say that every girl child need to go to school. That is the first big problem. The second big problem is our banking system, which always used to be an elite group. The financial inclusion never happened until Jan Dhan Yojana came, where a branch manager's power of discriminating, I am going to give you an account facility or not, taken out from his or her hand. Practically, India didn't have more than 50% didn't have bank accounts. And the third biggest problem of India is the logistics and infrastructure issue. These were not identified early enough that the logistics and infrastructure are the key to development. The entire Keynes economy is on infrastructure development. America is America because of the road they have built. And we didn't realize it until early 2000. The fourth point is economic liberalization. And none of this probably has anything to do with the second 5-year plan. The fourth is the economic liberalization. The fifth point, which probably has something to do with the second 5-year plan or so on and so forth, is what was valid and very important when Professor Mahalanobis did those planning were probably partly not valid after 15, 20 years, and we kept on the same way. To give you an example, when the second 5-year planning happens, there was a lot of push to grow very fast and very, so that the quantity goes up, rice, and the community in India has been pushed to eat more rice because otherwise it will be very hard to feed people. That was a very good decision then. But we continued the same way, and as a result, we didn't change. We today have so much of diabetes. So that food habit change was what was necessary then. No policymaker checked by saying probably it's need to relook at it again, and it's probably not so much important today. And there are some implications of those are there. So I guess these are, in my opinion, things we have missed.
I would like to answer that question, Srijit. See, a lot of people who make comparisons, like, for example, East Asian tigers and India comparison, etc., those comparisons are not valid for the reasons Pulak Ghosh has just mentioned. Any policy problem is formulated as it has an objective function, it has constraints, and it has initial conditions. To the extent you evaluate, you have to examine all these conditions. What are the initial conditions? What are the dynamics of the economy? And what are the objectives? All these things have to be taken into account before you actually compare. And that is normally not done. It's very difficult to compare without all these.
Professor Suryanarayana, would you like to also answer that question?
That's okay. Let me comment from a policy formulation perspective, because since I generally teach courses on Indian economy or public policy, from that perspective, I just would like to comment. I agree with what Professor Krishna Kumar said. Much more is that if I let me summarize. So sometime back we had a similar to panel discussion in Delhi. So I was asked to summarize how far Indian fire plans have contributed to India's development. I simply summarize in one sentence. I really don't know if they have contributed to India's development, but they have contributed in my teaching of econometrics. Because this is precisely what I would like to do. In other words, even if I go to several successive fire plan documents, technical notes, I found that one is not clear about concepts, measures, estimates. For instance, for example, when I teach statistics or econometrics, we know the grouping bias, how grouping of information affects our estimates, whether it's average or even inequality parameter or variance parameter, everything we talk about it. But when it comes to finally policy making and analysis, we just don't care. I'll just give an example from the technical note of the 6th fire plan. It makes a case for not your growth with the redistribution. A substantial case for redistribution. How they say that redistribution is a feasible option, and issue how does it do? It makes estimates of inequality for the period from 1961-62 to 1973-74, completely ignoring that these inequality estimates are based on group data, that there is grouping bias, underestimation of inequality, they are not comparable. As a result, what happens was that because of the increasing grouping bias, one gets a statistically illusory picture of decline in inequality. So they took the experts, they fitted even a trend function and found that inequality in rural India declined at the rate of declined at the rate of 0.3%, for urban sector some 0.26%, everything. Using this information, they try to validate their choice of a development strategy, growth with redistribution. What I'm telling is, okay, one is perception and comparative information is important. But at the same time, even when I apply, today is statistics day, so I thought that even when applying statistics and tools and to analyze problems, first step in any policy analysis is to specify the problem, understand the problem, even and finally justify the choice of your instrument. Even in this dimension, if you go to different fire plans, we find that quite often some of the fundamentals that we learn in the classroom are left in the classroom. They're not applied in our formulation of policy documents. So this is what I would like to comment. These are my perceptions on my perspective on this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. I think these are very important points from all three of you. So now we go to the third open session, where the issues to be raised by each of you as you feel. Maybe you can take it from the discussion that has happened, or anything else that you think is important in our understanding or teaching or research of statistics at a global and also national level. So, Professor Krishna Kumar.
One of the issues is regarding the so-called official statistics. See, the reason why people use the term official statistics is some kind of a stamp of reliability, authority, authentication, etc. Now, I would like to know to what extent that nature of official statistics is still valid, that people can rely on the official statistics that are coming out. maybe Professor Pulak Ghosh, now being a member of the commission, can throw some light on the authenticity and timeliness of release of the official information and not controlling dissemination of the information, etc. These are some of the issues on which some professionals are raising concerns. And on a statistics day like this, I think we should reflect on this particular aspect of the quality and timeliness and non-availability of data that is there. Professor Ghosh.
Right question. I don't know if they're asking valid questions.
Okay.
Because the point is that India is doing things as it is last 20 years the same way. And this is where the problem is. So for example, if you are aware that, few months back or probably last year, all of a sudden people started saying, oh, the consumption basket is so low. People are consuming so low because they have so low income. Right? Now, that's an absolutely nonsense argument, because the question we are asking in the consumption basket was valid 20 years back, not valid today. I'll tell you why. 20 years back, when we do the survey on consumption basket, what do we ask? What do we eat in breakfast? Roti, chawal, rice, and typical things. India has moved. Today, majority of the people consumption has moved, and our question hasn't moved. Not only that, because of enormous amount of subsidy program, the amount, so today what happens, every state government, including central government, has their child midday program, as well as somebody is getting rice in per kg 2 rupees. When that happens, and my household get that, and when a surveyor goes and asks the same question which he used to ask 20 years back by saying, how much do you spend on buying rice? It's going to be less than what he or she used to spend 10 years back. These realities are not coming in the question because we haven't changed the question. Why we haven't changed the question? Because the same external advisors resisted it by saying, if you change the question, I will not have a time series to compare my academic research. So there is a broader issue here. It's not that government is cooking anything. It's because things are not looking like it's true, because our fundamental questions haven't changed the way it should have changed, given the people are changing, their consumption is changing, their behavior is changing. And that's the fundamental problem we are fighting right now. That what to ask to whom. This is not the same thing as 20 years back when the rural-urban divide was not so huge. This was not the same time when Tier 1, Tier 2 cities divide was not so huge. Right? So this is a micro blogging. Within the same districts, you have so much inequality today that the questions asking the same household who have a 2-storied house in a village and a household who has a kacha house, the question asks the same. How can the question be same? This is the fundamental problem of statistical community in India today. We have not changed the questions based on the time, and that's why the answers we get, we have started saying, oh, how can it be true? Because I'm experiencing something different. Of course, it's not going to be true because the question I'm asking is not changed. So it's a big problem to change that sentiment within the statistical system, that we need to change the way we do survey. We need to change the way we ask questions. Even we need to change our sample base. This is where the problem we are struggling with. It's not the authenticity. It's the age. The country has changed so much over time. Today, you won't imagine we are finding a supermarket store is in a tier 3 city selling cornflakes maximum compared to a tier 2 city. Now, if I don't change my question, this change in consumption habit is not getting reflected in my answer. And this is the single most problem of statistical system today. And we all have responsibility for messing it up this way. We all. I mean, we all means the old guard, the current guard, and the future. And all the academic institutions together are to blame for this mess. We haven't looked at this carefully.
However, policymakers' interference in changing the base period for calculating the GNP statistics and so on, is there any truth in that?
That I don't know, because that doesn't come to NSC. That's completely the prerogative of the MOSPI. But I believe the chief statistician told me when I asked him that every time the policy basis changed as per the World Bank guidelines. So I don't know.
Professor Suryanarayana has to give his views on this session.
Thank you. Yeah, in response, I just want to clarify what Professor Krishna Kumar was asking. It is to, essentially, when it comes to, I always get worried when people start debating on this reliability of the growth rate estimates or database, etc., as if it is monitored, completely guided by politicians, etc. It is not really true. As Professor Ghosh pointed out, it is essentially, all the different country governments, to ensure comparability, they just use the United Nations guidelines, and that's what is done actually. That's one thing which I would like to emphasize. So quite often people think that, even once Arun Jaitley pointed out, I get to know this when I read newspaper in the morning during morning breakfast. I don't know at all what is happening. But people try attribute motives. I think that is one thing. But okay, I would like to, I'm taking a perspective slightly different from what Professor Ghosh said. Okay, I definitely agree with him about the need for change in statistical methodology and focus. Definitely, those are important today. No, what I'm telling you, still the fact that many issues, many methodology framework we have not changed at all. For example, whenever look at the policy making apparatus, we still continue with the same economic survey every year, where really it is essentially platform where we specify the issues and formulate problems. So what I would like to say is, if you just go through some of the recent economic surveys, now, in other words, what I want to tell you is the whole purpose of this statistical day celebration is supposed to be to sensitize the public about uses and abuses of statistics. What I'm telling you that there is a greater need to sensitize the policymakers about the uses and about the careful use of statistical concepts and awareness about that. What I'm trying to, for example, let me give you a couple of examples. If you want, I can name the recent economic survey. The recent economic survey, if I went through the different chapters, the expert who wrote the paper or survey doesn't even know the difference between annual growth rate and average annual growth rate, annual average growth rate, annual average growth rate, average annual growth rate, and annual average growth rate. He doesn't even know what is. There's a lot of reference and description of inequality in income, Gini ratio, etc. He doesn't even know what is Gini ratio. And there is a definition is produced. It is simply lifted from, plagiarized from the UNDP report, which is absolutely wrong. In other words, the expert who read, again, the expert was also making poverty estimates and there are changes in poverty estimates, etc., without having any idea what are these poverty estimates, how are they estimated, what is the reference period. When I compare 2 points of time, how do I really interpret them? This kind of gross anomalies we find when you see some of these economic surveys. What I'm trying to say, it is very, very important because this is the place where you really identify the problem and you prepare the next economic policy for the next year, budgetary policy, or also the 5-year plan, etc. Similarly, if you look at this one about other than inequality and growth rate, again, it was the same human economic survey talks also about human development index. It doesn't even know that whether it's a stock concept or it's a flow concept. Let's say all sorts of interpretations. Again, in fact, I was just before this, when I got this invitation from Srijit, I was just wondering what should my focus. Then I thought, let me just see how people have discussed the previous issues. I just went through some of the previous panel discussion reports in different places. Then I found that a lot of time they've discussed only what sort of data is available in India. It looked, I was amused, but the question is, looking back, I feel that they're very important, because some of these economic surveys, they have made commentaries on income distribution or income inequality, etc., without it really knowing what exactly we have, what sort of information we have, how are they to be interpreted. In fact, that's the reason my strong feeling is that there is the need for sensitizing not the public but the policymaker about how do you defend, what are these basic concepts. How do you define them? How do you interpret them? And how to program? For example, people don't even know the difference between a bar diagram and a histogram. For example, again, there's an expert group which has really made, for example, doesn't know that, for example, mode or median, these are not additive and decomposable. That expert group which has tried to define a poverty line by estimating the different components of the poverty line using median, mode, and everything, simply adding them up. These are the elementary statistics that we learn in a classroom on statistics, but when it comes to policy making, we simply ignore. So I feel that there's very important need to sensitize even the policymaker about these fundamental concepts, methods, how to use them. That's what I have on this here.
I would make a quick comment on this. This is a very valid point, and I think this is happening because, again, our old guards or our predecessor thought statisticians should only learn statistics and economists should only learn economics. But when it comes to policy making, for example, if I am in MOSPI and I am head of a survey, until I understand macro, micro really, really well, I have no clue what I am doing and what is the implication of it to the country. And that part is completely missing. The same thing is with economists. Economists, until they are trained with very well statistics, they only interpret the data they get, but they don't come together with the statistician to make it a better thing. So until these two mix, either the statisticians get a very rigorous training on the official economics, what I say, so that they understand the value of what they're collecting, so that they become more careful in it, and vice versa. It didn't happen, and it needs to happen. To give an example, the current chief statistician of India is the only one who is a statistician. Every other chief statistician of India were an economist. Right? Why would that be the case? So lot of this interdisciplinary culture, which is very hard in India, needs to be brought in. And today you cannot leave computer science if you want to do statistics. Right? So these intertwined, multidisciplinary things has to come together to make it work. Otherwise, it will be the same thing as Professor Suryanarayana is actually saying.
There's a question on reliability of government data, and I think Professor Ghosh has already answered about the relevance of breaking silos, and in fact, it was coming up in your talks. Almost all of you were mentioning this, so I thought maybe further elaborating. Professor Ghosh has elaborated. Maybe Professor Krishna Kumar and Professor Suryanarayana can they please elaborate on how we can break barriers, and maybe perhaps with lessons from your days at ISI or even beyond that. Thank you, Professor Krishna Kumar.
Yeah, it is very difficult to expect one person to master many disciplines. So that is one of the main reasons why people try to specialize. But what is missing is not that kind of an expertise in one person, but a proper communication and dialogue. One of the first jobs I did as a statistician was to be a member of a statistical consulting group within a university in Florida. And in that consultancy group, any person who has a problem in statistics would come and discuss with the consultancy group. It would so happen that we were statisticians, we didn't know about sociology, we didn't know about politics, but those people will come and ask what method should we use. And we used to say, before we can tell you what method to use, we would like to know what is the problem. We would like to know what is your data, etc. And in the process, we all got educated in the application areas. This is mainly the reason why Mahalanobis started having a biometry unit, a planning unit, and so on in a statistical institute. Okay. So it is a dialogue that is most important, and a deep dialogue that too, so that one can trust the opinion of the other person.
Professor Suryanarayana.
Thank you, Srijit. Yeah, I agree with Professor Krishna Kumar. Again, I just want to share my own experience in this context, because having exposed to different all this public policy at the state level, etc., I want to share some experience. Sometimes what will happen is, really, I don't know, particularly in recent years. Earlier, I know that, particularly in the 60s or 70s, regularly we have all this. Most of this, planning commission advisory boards have an expert from every discipline or every different branches. That's why they, before taking any policy, they always used to sit and have a lot of discussion. I always remember Professor Nikhilesh Bhattacharya, Professor Iyengar, everyone going every month, attending meetings, etc. Sometimes this is missing. For instance, I will just to give an example. Today, whenever we talk about state level human development indices or district-wise estimates of poverty, people say inadequate sample. Of course, Professor Minas came up with a solution. He tried to say that how by mixing the central and state sample, you can try to address this problem of inadequacy of the sample size. But still many, for example, we try to develop such estimates for Karnataka and everything. Even then, for some of the North Indian, some of the districts in North Karnataka, we got results which do not tally with our own a priori expectation, which don't tally with our own understanding of those regional districts. So that's the reason. In that context, Professor Deepankar Kundu came up with the solution. You make an estimate of poverty for the whole state. Sample size is not a problem. Then you make estimates for the entire state minus that particular district of under interest, and take the subtract, and then you can estimate a district reliable estimate of poverty. So you try to look at the statistical properties, etc., and try to develop a formal methodology for that. But the question is, even till no one has tried to use those methods. In other words, what I'm telling is there is some consent. I don't know for what the reasons. There is no, as Professor Krishna Kumar pointed out, there is no dialogue or there is no communication. Now, that is quite important to have some. Of course, I know that for the Indian Statistical Service officers regularly go to different institutes, ISI, even IGIDR, they come, they have training programs, everything. But I really don't know how far this updation of knowledge goes and everything. I'm not sure about it. Maybe even though some attempts, since there is some effort at updating their knowledge, but I don't know what sort of curriculum, what sort of topics are discussed. I really don't know whether they keep continuing second fire plan discussing in this discussion in 2020. I really don't know how it goes, but definitely I know there is a need for dialogue. There is a need for communication. There is a need for spreading of information. I think this is what I found them missing whenever I did some policy making participated in policy makings at the state level or district level in state like Maharashtra or Karnataka. Thank you.
Subrata Mukherjee, can I answer the question?
Yes, sir.
What I have noticed, for example, I can give you.
What you do when your evidence-based policy suggestion is not political incentive compatible and policymakers straight away reject it.
Yeah. Not only reject it, what they do is they appoint another committee to recommend something which they like.
Well, I have a slightly different view. I mean, working with the government, with state government, central government, a lot of them, I'd say government's idea is different than a political party's idea. So government is always trying to do things right for you. And the problem is there's a lot of unresolved issues. So yeah, if you approach 10 things, even if 2 things goes through, you should be very, very happy because you have made a change. You should not go to policy making by saying, I'm going to pitch everything and everything is going to get through. No, if that is what it is, you are in a wrong building. You should try 10 things. You are doing it for your own country, for your vigor, for your resilience, for something what you love. But don't expect in return that whatever you pitch is going to go through, and it has nothing to do with political will or something. You cannot be that intelligent. It's as simple as that. Okay, so 10 things you try, make sure that 2 things goes through, work hard, and if 2 things goes through, you have made your implications to the country.
Professor Suryanarayana, you would like to answer that? Professor Suryanarayana, do you have any answers?
Sorry, I don't have a different perspective on that.
Okay, now I think if I don't think we have any more questions from our live participants. So what I would and my colleagues are also, I don't think they have any additional questions in private chat. So yes, we would like to before we go for the vote of thanks, I would request each of you to give your final quick remarks or lessons for current generation of users of statistics. Professor Krishna Kumar.
Yes. I agree with Professor Pulak Ghosh that the nature of statistics is evolving and rapidly changing. So rapidly changing that one has to be really up to date and try to catch up as much as possible. That is one. Secondly, lot of times data does not come the way you would like, and you have to generate it yourself. You have to look for it. If it requires a lot more energy, a lot more time, it has to be done. Because unless the quality of data is what it should be, the ultimate result won't be good enough.
Professor Suryanarayana, your final remarks?
Yes, I always illustrate when I teach statistics. I always illustrate my teaching with the example of the SALT test. Without SALT test, my course doesn't begin and doesn't end. So let me tell you, the SALT test is a very clear example because whenever we teach statistics, conventionally people always think that without sample set you can't make different estimates. We need different samples. But without standard errors or without acceptance regions, critical region, we can't really make an inference about reliability of certain estimates, etc. So in this connection, I will say, I always say that very good understanding of the concepts and estimator is important. To illustrate that, I always give the SALT test example where you have just 3 estimates of total expenditure, consumption of total cereals, pulses, and salt. And using the average consumption estimate, you get 3 different estimates of number of refugees in different camps. And just using your understanding of human behavior, you arrive at a reliable estimate. So, I'm just always tell my students, give this example, when I teach statistics. So in other words, what I'm trying to say that going through, based on my whatever said so far, a very clear understanding of the concepts and the estimator is important, And like the way Professor Deepankar Kundu tried to address the question of, inadequate sample size for a particular district, with novelty and with a good understanding of statistics, it's always possible to address issues and try to formulate, specify a problem and choose a policy issue. This is a policy solution. That's what I say. Thank you.
Professor Pulak Ghosh, your final remarks, please.
So I'd say 2 remarks. One is statistics changing, and it's going to change the way you cannot even imagine. To give an example, when I was a graduate student in a regression setting, number of parameters are supposed to be way less than the sample size, and that used to be the Gita, Quran, Bible. Today, nobody gives anything to that assumption. Today, number of parameters are actually way, way higher than sample size, and all our theories are gone in one moment, right? So statistics is changing very, very fast. You better embrace computer science as fast as possible. If today any school kid comes to me that I want to learn statistics, my initial question always be, have an undergrad in computer science and then go and learn statistics. The second, lot of problems is getting solved using alternate source of data. So get out of the mindset that survey is everything to solve. Just like Suryanarayana was saying, today World Bank has shown that I can actually calculate the GDP of a district of India just by nightlight of that district. You do not need survey data, right? These are the two main changes going to shape statistics in next 10 years. It will not be the same we learned.
So I think, thank you all so very much. I now request Rashmi, our research scholar, to give a vote of thanks.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I would like to, first of all, I would like to thank this entire team, and specifically Professor T Kumar, Professor Suryanarayana, Professor Pulak Ghosh, and Professor Srijit Mishra for being the moderator, and my colleague Dipti Jena for introducing the theme, and Professor Mahalanobis, and I would like to thank Dr. Sahu for giving us technical support. In short, I would like to brief this entire session. So what I have learned and would like to thank accordingly is, like, when I okay. Okay, so for introducing Mahalanobis, it was a very a new thing for me. I'm from a sociology background, so understanding a little bit of Mahalanobis and understanding statistics and its how statisticians are having problems, since I'm also using some amount of statistics. So it's kind of awareness this session or this panel discussion has given to me, and also maybe to other participants. So Professor, some of the points which have been raised, and it has helped me think that what are the problems is faced by the statisticians, and what are they. So the way Professor Ghosh says, like, our statistics is in danger. Because, like, computer scientist has taken over it. I mean, it's a gradual process though. So we are facing problem in mapping incidents of health incidents, climates, and food related issues. And there are plenty of problems where we need to solve them, but still we do not have data. Data, as in, so say for example, this COVID pandemic, the migrants are coming and we do not have fresh data, and we need to go back to other set of data which is already there. So my little query here is, like, if we go to other set of data, will that be relevant in order to solve the pandemic problem? So that is one of the kind of issue I am having here. And there is the way Professor Pulak raised is concept and data are changing. Like the way text, the data is coming in text, the data is coming in voice, the data is coming in static and picture or video forms. So how do we use that data? I think the way he raised the multidisciplinary way of understanding and using it, I think that is giving space for a new researcher to think about it, how they can use this sort of new way of data rather than using only static data. And he has also raised upon the question on how history discipline is using statistics, like how why sati is happening, why not like to other men, why this discrimination is only having to women. So this is kind of a qualitative subjective understanding that we have, but we are not able to measure that. So if we are not able to measure that, maybe we are not able to analyze that properly. So yeah, so this kind of, as a sociologist, this kind of concern is being for me, because I need certain qualitative data, but I am facing problem in measuring it. So how do we do that in statistics? Professor Suryanarayana raised question in a policy perspective, like we are, since 2 decades we are using this human development index, but we are not able to extract gender development index. So we do not have gender specific when it comes to gender equality or gender empowerment. We talk a lot about it, but we do not have specific concrete data on genders. So that is where it is creating problems for the statistician to come up with the solution. And Professor Pulak Ghosh raised about that, gave an example of that lump sum 25,000 amount of money given to the girl child. So whether it is functioning properly for reducing gender gap, or whether it is not functioning, is also kind of, we need to create a data for that. We need to do research on that and then create data, and then we know whether that policy is being successful or not. So in each and every aspect, wherever we are implementing policies, we need to know whether data is being able to generate, or whether we can use that data to evaluate the policy. So yeah, and then Professor Kumar has raised that, where I also think in the same way, that we are much more into already made up a set of data like NSSO and any other set of data. But whenever there is a situation like the pandemic has shown us so a lot of situations, not only coronavirus, there are multi factors coming in. And for the recent problems where hell lot of people are facing, and there are segments of problems, are we able to generate data and use data to solve the problem, or we are trying to take help from other set of made of data, old data, and trying to estimate something. So it's kind of creating a little issue, not little, the big issue. And yeah, so that is how I understood. And I would like to thank all of you for this wonderful session. I would also like to thank other participants for raising relevant question. So thank you so much.